Ben Bowlby is 23. He lives and works in this house with his parents and younger sister.
Benji, supper's ready. That's what I know.
The Bowlbys are a close-knit family. They eat together most evenings. Ben's sister Sophie is a student studying costume design.
Sides to the legs, so running. I mean, it must be good for your heart running, but.
I know it's good for your shoulders and stuff.
Well, only a bit.
You know we're going to Jane's on Sunday.
Why?
For Easter. Open house, like they have. Yes.
I keep forgetting it's Easter.
Bringing up the children in her Russian Orthodox faith, Ben's mother, Ksenia, is perhaps the steadying hand.
It's fitting now.
Beautiful
I'm
now.
going to send a picture of my headdress to new screws made out of nuts and bolts.
That's brilliant. So you could clean up. You could.
What, from
No,
sponsorship
serious.
through college?
Well, I don't know whether new screws
No,
are the
I
right
have
place.
nuts and bolts.
I don't know whether.
Oh, I see. Oh, great.
Ben's father, Richard, is a photographer. His father, Ben's grandfather, pushed him towards a career in medicine, and he now runs the medical illustration department at the Royal Free Hospital. Richard discovered photography in his 20s, but before this found academic life difficult. Although he was bright and loved fiddling with machines, particularly cars, he thought he was just rather dim when it came to books. At the age of 6, his son Ben was beginning to show the same reluctance to read.
When he was at school, he wasn't reading as other children read. He read as I read. And his teachers said, you know, what's happening? Is there anything wrong at home? And they fairly rapidly realized that he needed some sort of attention, but they didn't know what. They got in one of their standard Ed Psych characters to do an assessment of him as one of the new pupils. And he duly had the assessment, and we, as parents, were called in to meet the chap. He seemed a pleasant enough bloke. And so we think your son's dyslexic. So he said, yes, fine. What's that? And he said, well, he's having difficulty recognizing sequences of objects. And so we said yes, and he had 3 little shapes, a square, a circle, and a triangle, and held a card in front of it. And he just flashed the 3 objects, and that was easy. I could remember the sequence. But then he said, when we put a 4th one in and muddle them up, and we show Ben 4, he can't remember what there was. So I said, well, no, nor can I. I don't suppose anybody can. He said, oh, yes, most people can do 5 or 6. I thought, I think this is the story of my life just coming out. So, I mean, this was quite an important revelation to me, that somebody had just sort of put their finger on something which had pretty much marred my early experiences as a school child. And here at the age of 40 or whatever I was, or late 30s, somebody had just taken the lid, just popped the lid straight off the can, and there were all the worms. And it was easy, because once you know what's going on, you can come to terms with it. It's when you don't know. I mean, I was in the remove, or whatever it was called. I was in the D stream at school as being somebody who you can't really help. And I was asked to leave a couple of schools because they had done all they could for me, and there wasn't really much more point in staying on. And this was all fairly character-forming stuff. Negative, I may say. Because you feel eventually, yes, that you must be thick.
Ben isn't thick, and Richard was determined that his son should never feel thick either. By the age of 9, despite dyslexia, Ben is immersed in a world of quite advanced problem-solving.
Well, this is the museum of my childhood. I don't know if I'll be able to dig out any of the bits. I have found something. This is quite interesting, but this is a really early... I didn't think I still had this. It's funny, I don't know why it's got up to this end. I suppose at the age of 9, a couple of years after my first sort of modelling, I was given this model engine. Let's just hang this on something. This was one of those, I can remember it now, my father was so scathing of this. It was made in about an hour and a half, and it was just total frustration. I just wanted to create something fast and for it to go. And this is the first engine I got. I mean, it's funny, it's tiny little, it's not even 1 cc, it's 0.9 of a cc. Oh dear, it's embarrassing to look at. I can see why he cried when he saw it, you know. But that was a little zoomer. I don't know why I was so sort of pleased with that. I think it was just because it was built so fast, and it just did it. It was instant. Instant gratification. I suppose I was maybe feeling a bit down about something, and I just had to do it. Funny, that. I was looking for that. I haven't seen it for so long. I sort of moved off into boats. I'm sure I haven't got the first boat. I think it got cannibalised to make the second one. But the second one was this one, called Clockwork Orange. In fact, this here is the plug from which the mould was made. I'm sure the mould is somewhere as well, but it'd be impossible to find.
This self-taught technique of plastic moulding will turn out to be of crucial importance a few years later. So will the behaviour of fluid dynamics, which Ben discovers as his model boats get faster.
This one in here, which I saw. Strange line in names. You can hardly see it on here, but we built up through testing with grease put on the bottom of the boat a bulge which caused a high-pressure area of water that prevented air creeping. And it sounds completely ridiculous, but air used to creep up the back of the boat and into the propeller like that, which is an extraordinary thing to happen. And that's why this thing won the records it did, simply because it didn't air draw. Most model boats do. Yeah, my father got interested and rather took over. And
Soon, Ben and his father are building even faster models that skim over the water, not through it.
We built hydroplanes. The idea is that it probably needs a bung to get it going, a chuck to get it on the plane, and it rides on 3 points. Right at the tail here, on that sort of hydrodynamic surface, and on these two here, these are the rudders. They have an angle on them as for hydrodynamic stability as it corners. I suppose maybe the aerodynamics came into it a little bit, but in fact the angle of attack of the sponsons was very important to stop it flipping. But in terms of the body, the aerodynamics weren't that important. It was more about getting the thing up onto the plane and being stable on the plane. I mean, this was a joint project, but I mean, I suppose it was beyond me at the time. I suppose it's still, I mean, in those days, a year was a long time, you know, you did a lot in a year. Certainly, I never shared any of my modelling with friends at all. That was completely at home. I remember once coming home from school after I'd heard some really with-it girl saying, I only live on the weekends. I thought, yeah, I only live on the weekends, but totally different.
About 10 years ago, Ben was still having severe reading and writing difficulties. But at home, he graduates from boats that almost fly to clever model cars.
I was about 15, because I stopped playing with cars and things. I had my O-levels coming up and I had to completely stop modelling and work really hard to get my O-levels. This one is the last of the cars I built. I suppose it was about the Mark IV car. I suppose it was largely inspired to build another car by a programme I saw on ground effect. And this car incorporated ground effect on the underside. What I did was, I remember when designing the underfloor of this thing, I sat on the kitchen table, a cardboard-shaped underside and blew the vacuum cleaner nozzle, which the vacuum cleaner turned backwards, blew it at the underside, and felt this thing go like this. I thought, blimey, there's something to be had there. Well, at that point, that was the only aerodynamics I needed to know, in a way. I mean, I wasn't... I didn't have the patience to start reading up books, and probably not the understanding or the maths to cope with it. So it was a matter of sort of empirically finding there's an advantage there. That must translate into downforce on the suspension and onto the tyres that would give more grip, and the thing would go around corners faster. That was real fun, that was. I used to drive it on Brent Cross car park and get chucked out on Sunday mornings. Pleasant memories, certainly. I mean, in a way, I suppose I haven't been up and looked at them for a long time, but it brings back happy days, you know, certainly, that's true. I think if you showed me a school book, it would remind me of other things completely.
Ben stops experimenting with models and, with difficulty, just forces himself through some O-levels. But A-levels defeat him.
Good, Charlie. You've got to simplify your working. Okay.
He isn't happy in this type of environment. His dyslexia makes A-level maths almost impenetrable. But he's lucky. His maths tutor, now retired, encourages Ben to evaluate his enthusiasms outside school as an education.
I think schools and teachers generally feel in a sort of straitjacket about what their purpose is. And I think more and more the expectations are that there will be something that can be evaluated and quantified at the end of their work. And I think if you say, for instance, that the Wars of the Roses ended in 1483, you're quite near. But if you say 7 and 6 are 12, you're absolutely wrong. But you're a bit nearer than you were with the date. And I think some people, when they're young, are always right, and some are always wrong. And those who are always wrong get the impression that they're stupid in some way. I think with the use of calculators and so on, it's a lot healthier, because I think they can achieve a lot of right answers, as it were, which is encouraging. But if people could learn maths later, I think, and introduced to more interesting things at a later stage, then I'm sure many more people would enjoy it, because people are naturally interested. Majority of people are interested in solving puzzles and problems and that sort of thing. But you must have an expectation of success, and a lot of people with maths, I think, have an expectation of failure.
Success and failure are more fun if you can learn from the results.
Yeah, on. It's not bad, eh?
Not bad.
Grab that.
The Alco looks good.
Yeah. Last minute thought. Right.
After failing A-levels, Ben returns to his real interest. But instead of models, he decides to build full-sized sports cars, problem-solving as he goes.
Do you have any trouble with that nose?
No, I've had to strip off all the suspension, including the front bulkhead.
This delicate glass fibre skin is part of his latest project.
Different type of... You're right. Yeah. Some different types of screws on the...
He has built the chassis in his father's garage. This glass fibre bodywork has been built next door in the garage of his grandfather, Dr. John Bowlby. The skin has been moulded over a plug, just like the model boats he made 13 years ago. But today is the first time he's tried to fit the body to his car's aluminium monocoque chassis. A monocoque means that the chassis derives its strength not from the materials it's made from, but from the way the material is formed into rigid boxes.
Spin it up the other way around, like that.
All right.
Steady.
What do you reckon?
That's all right. Go on. Let's hope the old girl fits.
Go on then.
We've got to pack it up because it's sitting down on the floor and the
What's
chassis
that
up on...
It's up on there.
Yeah, that's going to be all right. That'll...
But that's got to come off anyway.
We can move it forward now to see if we have...
I can't.
Why, what was
move.
hitting?
It's jamming on the inside.
You reckon it is that both insides?
Yeah, because it's being pushed together.
Yeah.
That's right, isn't it? Yes.
Well, I'm not sure if it was.
Yeah, it
you know.
was. It was jamming.
Yeah, I didn't feel that. Should we just... Actually, I'll tell you what we can do.
We've got to tin snip that off.
Yeah, we can just undo
No,
it.
don't mess about. Put that back on.
As well as Ksenia Bowlby, 83-year-old granddad, a child psychiatrist, can't resist watching his son and grandson learn on the job.
That's great.
What about that exhaust?
Well, it obviously is clearing.
Isn't it?
It's sitting right down on it at the moment. No, it's not.
What's holding it?
No, it's this lid part.
It's just that, is it?
It's only that. I think
look.
a slight touch on there.
Get a marker.
There's one.
Just mark it up here. No, I don't want to...
Fits, Doc. It fits.
Sorry to disappoint you.
Yes.
No fun. We're going to have to reinforce that, because when we cut that out...
It's interesting, actually, how the cockpit opening's got to come well forward from where it is at the moment. Yeah.
We've got to come right
It's interesting
up there.
where the roll cage is going to come. We'll do it in situ, I think. I'm going to straight line it as well.
Not
Actually, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll
mind my paintwork.
All the cars in this class use the same engines. So this skin is a radical aerodynamic membrane designed entirely by Ben to maximise the efficiency of his available power. 5 years ago, Ben built this special car based on a Suzuki saloon. It was with this that he begins to realise that the aerodynamics he played with in his models can offer intriguing advantages. Unable to afford a wind tunnel, his father takes pictures of the car at speed so Ben can study airflow. The special saloon rules prevent Ben from using wings to give his car extra grip. Instead, Ben devises this block-like boot. It works by converting low-pressure air that tends to lift the car into high-pressure downforce, holding it onto the road. Tufts of wool from his sister's textiles act as telltales for the flow over the strangely shaped car. It's what Ben would call a bodge, but 5 years later he'll find out it's a near-perfect way to improve the handling of a car.
What's going on there now? Something's not square on here. But do you know what? It's touching the corner of the monocoque there. We're going to have to give that a wee...
Well, does it need to come... Does the whole thing may need to come further forward, Ben?
Might have been... The other one was, though, wasn't it?
Is it a bit tight on these wheels, Ben?
No, it's not.
You sure? On the inside edge, not the outside.
Oh, really? Could be. What's blind that'd be?
Well,
I mean, we
might
could...
put
We
a spacer on.
could always... No, we couldn't, actually.
What?
I was going to say narrow the bodywork a bit with a... I don't
Because
know.
I mean, I think
I
we're
know, it's
okay on the
interesting.
outside.
Well, what's the width of
But
the...
I think because that's pretty
Okay,
narrow.
whip this side off.
I think.
Well, hang on, we're not going to be able to do that because I've got to move that.
I think you're going to need to,
let me just
to clear that front.
That's an interesting point. Ow, stop.
All right.
It's becoming clear that the painstakingly moulded glass fibre body isn't quite fitting.
Yeah, that's definitely against the tyre on that side.
And there.
And there. We're going to have to space that a touch.
Well, that's going to need ½ inch on each side.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit.
Oh, no!
For most children, this sort of fitting together is just a matter of learning.
Wait, I haven't finished mine. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
But they would probably find the design and assembly of complex models a near impossibility.
Oh, it's easy.
For Ben, the reversal of these skills posed real problems.
He had problems spelling. You could notice that straight away. That hit you very forcibly. He didn't have a great deal of confidence in committing himself to paper in writing because it didn't come easily. It had been a difficult task. He didn't find reading very easy because Ben had been slow in acquiring those skills. And so I think it was tedious for him. I can't tell you how many times I have seen children who just think they're total failures. That's the hardest thing to sort of cope with in teaching them is that they have no self-regard, very low self-esteem, because they have just thought that they are stupid. The number of times I've come across children that I've thought are dyslexic, that haven't been picked up as being dyslexic, who will be tested, and when you explain what it is and what the symptoms are and how they can be helped, their relief is enormous because they feel that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and there's so many other things that they are good at, and I think that is what one has to focus on.
The thing is, Ben can read and he can spell, but the period for which he can do it productively and with concentration is shorter than somebody who's not dyslexic. And the degree to which he's interested in what he's reading about also helps the span of his concentration.
Ben is now determined to become an automotive engineer. But with no A-levels, he cannot get the essential university qualifications he will need. Instead, he has designed his own degree in a full-time course known as Independent Studies here at the Polytechnic of East London. Again, the idea is to place himself near a sympathetic tutor who will share his enthusiasm and play down the difficulties. Engineering tutor Alan Slawson is becoming used to Ben's enthusiasm. A ping is Ben's word for a revelation.
Scribble down the things that are just main points. But first of all, major ping on anti-dive, anti-squat geometry, and I've actually realised that I've got there. It's a bit slow, But anyway, so just to keep you up to date on finances.
Ben's grant is £70 a term.
By 2,000 quid, so...
That 2,000 is what's left from hard-won sponsorship. But Slawson's real concern is Ben's lack of bookwork.
Quite interesting. The first one, which could be useful for your project write-up, is on plastic. Also, there's another one here about slip differentials, and also...
He's particularly concerned about Ben's reluctance to use computer-aided design, or CAD.
To read a few more articles about the use of CAD and the disastrous problems that people have had trying to integrate a system.
But do you reckon it's important that I should continue with the CAD?
Oh, yes.
Not for the first time in his life, Ben finds himself backing away from all but the practical work of building.
I think when you go to Lotus, you'll see them. I mean, they've got the normal drawing boards, but they're going to be sort of using computer design more and more. It's such a powerful tool.
The thing is going to be trying to find the time within this next term to sort of to do everything. It's going to be a real, you know. I mean, see, there's this, and there's also this whole question of the academic content of what I do this year, and then that leads on to next year. And there's, I mean, obviously,
it's good background reading.
Reading, computer literacy and writing up the results will eventually have to be faced, even though his independent studies tutors have tried to avoid the academic burdens of more conventional modular programs.
Modular programs, for example, will set out a series of module dishes, if you like, which the student can then make a choice of. But these dishes are set out by other academics who feel that they know what it is that the student needs to know. Independent study is saying, here is the kitchen, here are the facilities, design your own program. We have a dietitian on hand that will be able to approve whatever plans you make for your own higher education. But essentially, independent study is there for the students to solve the problem of their own higher education.
Right now, Easter approaches, college is in recess, and Ben's world closes round him. It's a fortnight after Easter, and the car is complete. Ben prepares to drive it on a track for the first time.
Actually, I mean, today it's going to be so gentle anyway that I don't think it's going to be too dangerous if I've got any little problems like that. You can see the tyre that's got embedded in the sock, you know, bits of shredded tyre.
It might be a gentle shakedown, but he'll be sitting against a hot engine and several gallons of 4-star.
I'm really funny about the amount of underwear and racewear I wear. I think people who go out with, you know, just a tiny bit of, you know, 2-layer suit and that's it, and a T-shirt on underneath. So really, they're being pretty good nanas, aren't they? Mind you, I say that, and I haven't got a fire screen on this car today because it's not ready. Probably should shave the hair off my chest, shouldn't I?
Having failed to get his son Richard to become a doctor, John Bowlby tried to persuade Ben to aim for a career in medicine.
Is it leaking?
He failed and finally accepts that his grandson's engineering skills are now equally challenging.
I was rather astonished to see those 2 springs in the nose.
Well, normally you can't see them because of the...
Yeah, I realise that. I didn't know they were there.
Yeah. I've had to open up the front of the nose section of the
He sees
car.
Ben's defeat of dyslexia not in schooling, but in his family life.
I think boys learn an enormous amount from being apprenticed to their fathers, and girls learn an enormous amount by being apprenticed to their mothers. This is the usual pattern. It's not necessary, but it's the common pattern. Children flourish on attention from adults. And if children get an adult's attention and affection and enjoyment and company and so on, they prosper. And I mean, so many children, unfortunately, don't get that from their parents and grandparents. You cannot, I would say, you cannot overestimate the importance of parental attitudes toward children. It is absolutely crucial. The lessons here are frightfully simple, and people who neglect their children do not like hearing them. That's the trouble.
Ben's childhood world was filled with heroes. One was his boyish father. Today, another is top racing car designer Frank Durney.
The most useful thing that could happen is for Frank Durney to say something I don't know anything about. That would be fantastic. If he mentioned something I've never heard of, that will be a real useful clue that there's something that exists that I have not come across, and that's going to make the new project better.
This is Durney's factory, Lotus International, in Norfolk. This visit is supposed to be part of his study, but for Ben, already dubbed by some observers the next Colin Chapman, a visit to Lotus is like a pilgrimage to a shrine.
Yes, hello, I've come to see Frank Durney.
Yes, could I just have your name, please?
It's Ben Bowlby.
Take a seat and I'll let him know you're here.
Thanks.
He's on the phone.
All Formula One cars are limited to quite a small amount of space at the back.
Yeah.
We're only allowed 1 metre wide.
Yeah.
And the diffuser isn't allowed to start ahead of the rear tyre. So the amount of diffuser we've got on the car is very small and very much limits the amount of downforce in proportion to the entire downforce.
Sure.
The proportion we have for underneath the car is probably less now in form, well, it certainly is less than when we had sliding skirts. And most other formulae, Group C or any of these sports cars, have got so much more space, like you've provided, that the proportion of the downforce you can get from underneath is much greater.
And, I mean, one of the sort of questions I've got is whether I'm going to be able to run without a wing. Now, maybe that's daft. The thing is, we've only got, what, 165 horsepower.
You won't be able to run without a front wing.
No.
Front and rear wings help hold the car down, but they create drag and therefore absorb power. So designers try to induce low drag downforce by shaping the underside of the body into a diffuser.
Yes. Well, there's not really very much you can see, but if you look here, we have a sharp hold there, and we also have some sharp-edged strakes which have been touching the ground, so you can see they're a little worn. Yeah. Now, everyone, I think, has their own theory, but certainly the flow is extremely three-dimensional in this area, and it's influenced by all the rest of the flow of the car. So, starting at the front, you have the front wing has a huge influence. The upwash from the central portion of the front wing has a serious detrimental effect on the rear wing. Right. So that's why a lot of people now are cutting away this middle bit of the wing. It helps this bit here and here. If they get more downforce from the outer edges, the upwash from the outer edges isn't detrimental for the rear wing, and it also helps the cooling.
I thought it was only for cooling. It's
well, you'd be surprised.
Well.
I think that's probably why people first tried it,
yes.
but were then absolutely gobsmacked by the fact that they got actually better lift-to-drag figures. The other really seriously detrimental thing you have on the front wing is the wingtip vortex, in that you're not allowed for these to seal.
No.
So you do get a quite strong vortex from the front wing, and if that goes in the wrong direction, the loss of mass flow you get through some of the important bits of the car is serious. So people have put turning vanes behind wheels, changed side pod shapes and what have you to try and get that vortex to go round the outside of the rear tyre rather than on the inside.
So,
yes, yours will probably work.
I'm trying to stuff it out.
Yes, I would say.
The rads go in front. In fact, you can just see them sitting in there.
Well, I think in that you were wrong. In simple terms, if you leave the radiator there, the air is going to wander along here and say, "Whoa, goodness me!"
Sure. I mean, I've got to build an entire ducting structure around the front of it. The question is what shape?
Well, you need a diffuser.
Yeah.
This diffuser duct slows air down, crucial if it's to pass through the tiny mesh of a radiator core.
Speeding it up again.
You've got to match the core resistance to the free stream flow.
Right.
With a heavily resistant core, if you didn't have a duct, why should the air go through that?
Not at all,
And particularly if it's an angle. Sure. If it was square to the flow, the duct probably wouldn't make very much difference. Right. But if you want to run it like this, the duct is very important and quite difficult.
If the air isn't, as you say, sort of flowing, it's not a flowing situation, why do you use radiuses like this?
Well, there is flow. Yeah. You do, in these local areas, you get low pressures due to the radiuses and various other bits and pieces. It isn't, and there's drag. You wouldn't put sharp corners anywhere where they weren't going to give downforce because of them being draggy. It's sort of more or less flowing almost parallel to the centre line of the car here. As you get closer to here where the more downforce is being generated, it gets much, much steeper. It's sort of flowing in this direction here.
Right.
And so in fact, the flow is going in and it's being tripped by the strake that's under here. I don't know whether you can see that. The strake there. It's at a fairly acute angle to that, and that makes a vortex. And I believe also there's evidence there's a vortex on the sharp corner, but in a typical situation with the new car, more than half of the drag is the wheels and tyres. The wings, bodywork, everything else is only contributing about half. So if you double the efficiency of the bodywork, you'd only lose 25% of the drag of the total vehicle. So it is a bit of a limit now with an open-wheel car.
Right.
But putting fairings and things on it is normally so detrimental.
The rules in clubman racing, Ben's category, insist that the rear wheels have mud guards, so Ben has enclosed them completely. This won't matter as long as Ben isn't misled by mere styling.
Sort of non-engineers, even quite a lot of stylists, will actually draw a sort of swoopy-looking car in side view with a very raked windscreen and all that sort of thing. And all that does is generate some upwash and downwash and lift. Whereas those cars which are actually aerodynamic are the ones that are aerodynamic in plan view. Things like Saabs, the older Saabs and Citroens, are actually much more aerodynamic than most of these swoopy things that have got lying down windscreens with sharp corners. They're appalling. I mean, things like the Lamborghini Coupe. Well, the original Esprit that's been replaced by a new SE was very angular, looked very stylish, but probably isn't certainly not as aerodynamic as a new one. But anyway, we now have at the back here a two-element wing. This one is used to mount the whole thing on as well, so it's structural. But part of
The improbable stack of rear wings on a Formula One car are more like turbine blades than conventional aircraft wings.
shape and where it stops are all related to each other to get optimum performance from all three, because they all help each other. Different
Part of their job is to act like an extractor fan, sucking out the air that exits from the diffuser on the underside of the car.
Sort of conflicts between the wings. I mean,
Oh
must be
yes,
very
it isn't
dodgy.
easy.
No, right.
Oh, yeah, I think that if you were to guess, like a lot of things in motor racing, you guess and you think to yourself, oh well, I'll try this and it's bound to be better, and it's much worse. And then you often learn from that, because you then have a big fiddle around to find out why it was worse, and you often learn.
Right.
That's the sort of learning Ben likes. He arrived at Lotus deciding not to try rear wings. Now he's not so sure.
If you're going to use a very short chord wing, which is very wide, which is far and away the most efficient, a central mount will not be enough.
Right.
You'll need
I'll have
to support it,
yes,
certainly, because you won't structurally be able to make a sensible wing, which is only supported in the middle.
I am going to make my own wings, because I basically can't afford to have them built. What would you reckon?
Difficult.
Very difficult. What would you reckon would be the best approach? I mean, I haven't got sort of...
We could help you out a little bit on that. We know how to make some wings that don't use pre-preg, so...
That would be fascinating.
But the position of the wing, relative to the body, fore and aft and height-wise, will be worth making lots of holes in your mounts for. Because you're not going to be doing a great deal of useful wind tunnel testing, I imagine, and therefore you have to do it at the circuit.
Sure.
The stopwatch tells you whether it's better or worse. Whatever the driver says.
Yes.
Whatever the speed trap says. Whatever anything else says, the stopwatch counts.
I once undertook some research with the manufacturing industry to find out what they particularly required of graduates from higher education. This was some 10 years ago. And even at that time, one of the comments that I remember particularly from a graduate recruitment officer at one of the major manufacturing companies near the Polytechnic, his comment to me was, well, you live in a unidimensional world, don't you? And I said, what exactly do you mean? And he said, well, let's put it like this. If you drive a car into a tree, you don't sit there and wonder whether it's a question of mechanical engineering or botany. Meaning, I think, that it's important for higher education to review the extent to which discipline boundaries are closed off from one another. And it's also important for students to be able to have the capacity to act rather than simply the capacity to know, to have confidence, competence and capability. And that, I think, is one of the great strengths of independent study.
When he said, you know, I wanted to do a course about racing cars, I thought, well, that's not really on, is it? I mean, it's not doing humanity good. It's trivial. But I pretty rapidly thought, well, some people do music. Some people do art. Because it's fun. Because it gives enjoyment. Because it gives pleasure. Now, anybody who's going to do a project like building a racing car is a hell of a project. It's not, I mean, you see these cars whizzing around in circles and you think, oh yeah, that looks nice. When you try and build one and design one and construct one and pay for it as a student, it takes a total commitment.
In fact, it's going to be all right, Fab, because we're not in the garage. That was the trouble. That's great.
The hurriedly completed car is wheeled out. But for some idea of how advanced Ben's thinking is, this is what clubman racing cars used to look like. Even the more exotic-looking cars, like this one, still use a conventional chassis and bodywork supported by frames, instead of a plastic skin over a monocoque box like Ben's.
Yeah, but it's nice because you can stretch the whole thing. It's a very strong box. It's got some nice pickups on it. Presumably the engine's not being as you see me being surgically clean with the fuel we put in.
A monocoque is hollow, so one side of the box can be used as a fuel tank.
I don't want to restop for refueling.
The engine is from a Vauxhall Astra. It's factory sealed, so it cannot be tuned. This means the only advantages in clubman racing are chassis design and engineering, aerodynamics and driver skill. To win his degree, let alone a race, Ben must be expert in all. Everyone is here to witness Ben's achievement.
Yeah, my feet are too wide wearing these shoes.
That's brilliant, Ben. That's fine, that's going.
No problem.
No. I can't remember.
Nice.
It looks about...
It's all flat, all about steering and transmission.
It's all spot on. I couldn't fault it without giving it...
Anything making any noises?
No, no noises. I mean, the trouble is finding my way through the gearbox because I'm not used to it at all.
No.
It's also very crunchy. It's so unrun. You know, it's so... Yeah. The thing is to run
also,
everything in a little bit.
You're not revving it right.
No. It's all, yeah,
it's
the
all,
clutch is a bit...
It's all a bit iffy, yeah.
The clutch is very nice,
What are the
actually.
brakes like?
Stopped me.
Yeah. Stopped you.
By 9, the circuit is filling with cars waiting to test.
We're going to use this, in fact, as the pattern for the future ones. I mean, this is just a bodge.
Yeah. Prototype.
Prototype.
Is the right.
Sorry,
word.
yeah, prototype.
Very, very interesting.
This is the man Ben could never quite beat in his Suzuki. Special saloon champion Ginger Marshall has turned up just to admire the work of his young adversary.
Water everywhere.
I've got all the water out of it.
Drained the entire head, haven't you?
Well, I have drained the entire head.
How much is that thing leaking?
It was only damp. Well, we know it was leaking before.
Whether the rules allow enthusiastic fathers to take the Vauxhall water pump to pieces isn't clear, but he discovers that a crucial seal called an O-ring was never fitted.
We've taken out the thermostat from the housing, and there's no O-ring. I don't know whether there ever was an O-ring. Anyway, Ben's going to see whether he can get some compound. But it looks like his gun's gone dry.
This is his course work.
That was for an O-ring, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the normal way of doing it now. They don't mess about anymore.
No, it's not big enough for anything else.
Are you sure you can take thermostats out of these things?
Apparently, that's the standard.
Oh, fair enough.
The all-important aerodynamic body shell is screwed down, and Ben suddenly realizes there's nothing solid to step on between the ground and his seat. The other problem is he can't get in or out quickly without removing the steering wheel. But he can't afford a quick release catch, so he could be trapped if he crashes.
But it'll just have to do for the time being.
Sticky tape seals the remaining gaps in the body and secures the key that will unscrew the steering wheel in an emergency.
You happy this body works okay now?
Yeah, I think so. A certain box of tricks around my belly that I hadn't anticipated on having when I lengthened the safety, or set the safety belt length.
The chap in the red. Can't hear. Can't hear, okay. Too much. That's it. Is that Mini directly behind? Now, Ben, one lap and cruise it, right? No messing about.
For now, Ben will run his Delta-shaped car without front or rear wings, only gradually adjusting its yet-to-emerge aerodynamic behaviour in the way Frank Durney recommended, learning as he goes.
Brilliant, mate. Oh, that's great. That's great.
A minute later, testing is stopped and the track is closed.
Practice testing stopped to recover a car. Thank you.
That was Ben, yeah. We saw the car coasting to a halt just as it was coming across the skyline.
They'll be bringing him in.
At this stage of the proceedings, there's more reasons for it to stop than not, really. Even Williams and Ferrari cars
Anyway, he's
stop,
all right.
don't they, when they...
This is why I don't come.
She hates it when they stop.
Yes. But
It's unfair and wrong.
It is a slightly tense moment for the team.
Can we keep out of the way? You want to come through here? What was it, Ben?
Just cut out.
Attention pilots, the circuit's now clear. You may recommence your practice. Thank you.
Well, the engine cut.
Yeah, it just went boom, 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 boom. That was it. Yeah. I mean, I suspect electrical, actually. Well, basically, the problem stems from a cheap ignition switch, which the vibrations of a solidly mounted engine have obviously instantly shattered the vital components in there, you know, and it's just not being consistent. And in fact, it restarted when the thing had sort of settled down a bit, but it's a rubbish bit of kit. It needs a proper aircraft switch.
15 minutes later, the team is back in business. Being an open test day, anyone with a racing license can turn up. And soon the mixture of cars on the circuit is more like a bank holiday outing.
I want to check water temperature.
By 2 in the afternoon, the temperature is in the mid-80s, and concern is growing about the air flowing, or perhaps not flowing, through the radiators, as well as the engine heat under the hurriedly completed body. The reason Ben sits to the right of the car is that the rules insist that it's a sports car and must have a conventional rather than central driving position. It's no hotter than expected in the cockpit, only about 105 degrees. But Ben's main concern is the special undertray that forms the diffuser beneath the rear of the car.
Can you check the undertrays on and everything at the back?
His father is more concerned about Ben's tendency to race any car in sight.
5 laps, but don't gun it. When a car comes, let it go. No. Don't push it.
The undertray seems fine, but Richard Bowlby decides 5 laps is 3 too many for his tired son.
That bodywork's getting very hot.
Ben's first race will be on the 19th of August here at Snetterton, but he's finding it hard to wait.
All right,
Still unable to resist a race, he's instructed to come in by pitboard.
How is it? It's fine. I haven't been in a racing car for, you know what, getting on for 6 months now. It's great. I'm not fit in the top end of me. I mean, I haven't had time to have a chance. Oh. This feels good.
Those times are coming down nicely.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to come there. I wasn't trying. Bit of fun, eh? I'm amazed at how balanced that is. That's pretty close first time, you know? I thought this morning, you know, when the car fell off the trailer and all the things that have been going wrong, what with tanks having things wrong with them and having to pull the whole back of the car apart. I mean, everything I've touched in the last week has gone wrong. And then this has all gone right in the end, so it's really very satisfying. Indeed. I need about a week's sleep. Actually, I promised myself tomorrow to stay in bed all day and not get out.
Ben is entering his 3rd year of independent studies and his 20th year of playing with models. It's been an education for everyone.